I was 47 the day my son told me I was too ordinary to succeed at anything new. He didn't say it cruelly. Not exactly. It happened at a family dinner. The kind where everyone talks over each other and the food gets cold before anyone notices. My son Daniel had just been promoted at his company. Everyone was congratulating him. My sister asked me what I'd been doing lately. And without thinking, I said, I've been considering starting something online. Daniel laughed. Not loudly, but enough. He said. Mom, you barely understand your phone. Everyone chuckled politely. The conversation moved on, but something inside me didn't. That night I sat in my small kitchen long after everyone had gone home. The house was quiet, and Daniel's words kept replaying in my head. Too ordinary. Too late. Too old to start something new. I opened my laptop. I didn't know exactly what I was doing, but I started learning. Every night after work, after dishes, after laundry, after everyone else went to bed, I watched tutorials. I read forums. I made mistakes. A lot of mistakes. The first website I tried to build looked like something from 1998. I almost gave up 3 times, but something strange happened. The more I learned, the more I realized something. I had something most beginners didn't. Patience. Years of it. For 25 years I'd run a household, managed budgets, solved problems, negotiated with contractors, handled emergencies. Turns out, those are business skills. I just never called them that before. So I started small. I began selling handmade kitchen planners online. Nothing fancy. Just practical tools for organizing meals, shopping lists, and household budgets. Things I had used myself for decades. The first month, I sold 2, both to strangers. I printed the orders and stared at them like they were lottery tickets. 2 people, 2 real people, had paid for something I made. The second month, I sold 11. By the 6th month, I was shipping packages every week. By the end of the first year, I was making more money from that little shop than from my regular job. I still didn't tell Daniel, not because I was hiding it, but because I wanted to see how far I could go without anyone's expectations. 2 years later, my online store had grown into a small brand. I hired a designer, then a part-time assistant, then someone to manage shipping. One afternoon, Daniel came over for coffee. He was stressed. His company had downsized. He'd lost his position. He sat at the table staring at his phone. I might have to start over, he said quietly. I poured him tea. We sat in silence for a moment. Then he noticed something. Boxes stacked neatly in the corner of the room. Shipping labels. Stacks of planners. What's all that? He asked. Oh, I said. That's just work. He looked confused. You still have the same job, don't you? I smiled a little. Not exactly. So I showed him the website, the orders, the sales numbers, the warehouse space I'd recently rented. Daniel stared at the screen, then at me. You built all this? Yeah. When? Mostly at night. He leaned back in his chair. For the first time in a long time. My son looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. After a moment he laughed. But this time it wasn't the same laugh. It was softer. Half disbelief. Half pride. I guess I underestimated you, he said. I shrugged. Most people do. A week later he called me. Mom, he said carefully. Do you need help with marketing? I smiled. Because sometimes life has a funny way of correcting people. And sometimes the person who once said you didn't understand the modern world ends up asking if they can work for you. Daniel didn't call again for almost a week. When he finally did, his voice sounded different. Less confident. Less certain. Mom, he said carefully. Are you busy tomorrow? Why? I was wondering if I could stop by. The way he asked felt strange. Daniel had never asked permission to visit before. Of course, I said. The next afternoon, he arrived earlier than expected. He walked into the house slowly, looking around like he was noticing things he had never paid attention to before. The stacks of boxes. the shipping labels, the printer constantly humming in the corner. You weren't kidding, he said quietly.
No.
He picked up one of the planners from the table. You really designed all this? Yes. And people buy them? I smiled. Apparently. Daniel sat down at the table and flipped through the pages. Meal planning charts, budget trackers, weekly organization pages. Simple things, but practical. You always used stuff like this when I was a kid, he said. I know. He looked up. So, how many do you sell? Last month.
Yeah.
A little over 3,000. The planner fell slightly from his hands. 3,000. Yes. His eyebrows slowly lifted. And how much do they cost? $24. He did the math in his head. I could see it happening. Wait, that's about 70,000 in revenue last month. Daniel leaned back in his chair.
Silent. Processing.
But that's just planners, he said after a moment. Not anymore. I opened my laptop and turned it toward him. The website homepage appeared. 3 new product lines. Digital planners. Kitchen organization kits. Printable budgeting systems. You expanded, he said quietly. Yes. When? Gradually. Daniel rubbed his face. I can't believe I didn't know about this. You never asked. He laughed awkwardly. Fair point. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then he cleared his throat. Mom, I wanted to ask you something. I waited. I might need a job. I had expected that. What happened with the company? I asked. They cut half the management team. And you were one of them.
Yeah.
He looked embarrassed. I've been applying everywhere, but the market is rough right now. I nodded slowly. He hesitated, then said the sentence I think was the hardest for him to say. I was wondering if maybe you needed help. I watched him carefully. Daniel had spent his entire adult life working in corporate offices.
Clean desks.
Structured systems. Clear job titles. My business looked chaotic by comparison. Boxes. Orders. Late nights. Constant problem solving. Help with what? I asked. Marketing, he said quickly. That's what I used to manage. He leaned forward. I could improve your website. Run advertising campaigns. Optimize sales funnels. The words came out smoothly, like he was back in a conference room giving a presentation. But something in his tone was still dismissive, like he believed my little business simply needed someone smarter to turn it into something real. I let him finish. Then I nodded. All right. His eyes widened slightly. Really? Yes. You'll let me help? I'll let you work. Daniel smiled.
For the first time since he arrived. Great.
I'll start tomorrow. Not so fast. He paused. What? You'll start the same way everyone else does. His smile faded slightly. What do you mean? You'll start in shipping.
He blinked.
Shipping. Yes. Packing boxes. Daniel laughed softly. I think my experience might be more useful somewhere else. I'm sure it will be, I said calmly. But first you need to understand the business. He crossed his arms slightly. I already understand it. No, I said. You understand theory.
He didn't like that.
I could see it in the way his jaw tightened. Mom, I spent 15 years in corporate marketing. And I spent 25 years running a household, I replied. That's where this business came from. Daniel opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again. Finally, he sighed.
Fine.
The next morning he arrived at 8. I handed him a packing list, a stack of shipping boxes, and a roll of tape. This is temporary, right? He asked. Yes. How long? That depends on how quickly you learn. Daniel spent the first hour quietly packing orders. Then he started noticing things. How many orders do we ship a day? Between 80 and 100. And you are doing all this alone? Mostly. He looked at the order sheets again. These customers come from all over the country. Yes. And you never run ads?
No.
Daniel frowned. So, How are people finding the site? I shrugged. Word of mouth. He stared at me. You built this entire thing without marketing? Apparently, for the first time since he started. Daniel looked impressed. But the real moment came 2 hours later. He was sealing a box when he suddenly stopped. Mom. Yes. This shipping label is wrong. I looked over. You're right. That order should go to Texas, not Arizona. Yes. How did that happen? Software glitch. He looked at the screen. Then at the order queue. Wait. He started clicking through the system. One mistake. Then another. Then another. Within minutes, his expression changed completely. This system is a mess. I know. Why didn't you fix it? I didn't know how. Daniel leaned back in his chair slowly. And for the first time that day, his corporate experience actually became useful. This could lose you thousands, he said. I know. He looked at the screen again. Then at me. Mom. Yes. We need to rebuild this entire system. I smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. Because the truth was, I didn't need Daniel to take over my business.
But I did want him to understand something.
Success doesn't always look impressive from the outside. Sometimes it looks like a kitchen table, stacks of boxes, and a woman who refused to believe she was finished learning. And the most interesting part of this story, Daniel still had no idea what was coming next. Because the biggest challenge our little company would face was about to arrive sooner than either of us expected. Daniel didn't sleep much that night. I could tell the next morning the moment he walked into the kitchen. His laptop was already open. 3 coffee cups sat beside it. You've been working, I said. He rubbed his eyes. I stayed up reviewing everything. Everything. The website. The payment system. The shipping software. The order flow. He shook his head slowly. Mom, this business shouldn't even be working. I laughed. And yet it is. That's what scares me. He turned the laptop toward me. Charts filled the screen. Numbers. Traffic sources. Customer behavior. You have something here most companies would kill for. What's that? Loyal customers. He clicked another tab. These people come back again and again. Yes. But your infrastructure is held together with duct tape. I raised an eyebrow.
Colorful description.
I'm serious, he said. If orders double, this system will collapse. I leaned back in my chair. That's why you're here. Daniel nodded slowly. For the first time since losing his job, he looked focused, motivated, useful. For the next 2 weeks, he worked harder than I'd ever seen him work. He rebuilt the order system, automated shipping labels, fixed the inventory tracker, created dashboards that showed sales in real time. And something else started to change. Daniel stopped calling it your business. He started saying, our business. One afternoon, he leaned back in his chair and smiled. You know what the funny part is?
What?
In corporate, I spent half my time in meetings pretending to solve problems. And now I'm actually solving them. I handed him another box to pack. Welcome to the real world. He laughed. But 3 days later, everything went wrong. It started with a single email. Daniel read it out loud. Customer complaint.
About what?
Delayed shipping. That wasn't unusual. But then another email came. And another. And another. Within an hour, the inbox was flooded. Daniel refreshed the dashboard. Orders were still coming in.
But something else was happening.
Packages weren't being delivered. Mom? Yes. He turned the screen toward me. The shipping carrier status page showed a warning. Regional distribution shut down. Severe weather. Hundreds of packages stuck in warehouses. Daniel's face went pale. How many orders are affected? I checked the numbers. Almost all of them. That's over 400 shipments. Yes. And customers think we didn't send them. Probably. He stood up and started pacing. This is bad. I know. No, this is really bad. He ran a hand through his hair. Refund requests will start soon. They will. And negative reviews. Yes. Daniel stopped pacing and looked at me. What do we do? I poured myself another cup of tea. We fix it.
How?
Same way businesses always fix problems.
He stared at me.
We talk to the customers. He frowned. That's it. Yes. Mom, you can't just explain away 400 delayed packages. I smiled slightly. You'd be surprised. For the next 6 hours, we answered every message.
Personally.
Not automated replies. Not customer service templates. Real messages. Daniel wrote carefully structured responses. Professional.
Corporate.
Safe. I wrote something different. Hi, Sarah. I'm the person who packed your planner myself last Tuesday. The storm closed the distribution center in Denver, so your package is stuck there right now. I'm watching it too. If it hasn't moved in 3 days, I'll send another one at my expense. Daniel read one of my replies. Mom, you're telling them you packed it yourself? Because I did. And offering replacements? Yes. That could cost thousands. Or it could earn trust. 2 hours later, he checked the replies. Customers were responding. Not angry. Grateful. One message said,
Wow.
I've never had a company respond like this before. Another. Don't worry about the delay. Thanks for being honest. Daniel leaned back slowly. This shouldn't work. But it does. By evening, the storm problem was trending online. Hundreds of companies were being blamed for shipping delays. But something strange happened with ours. Customers started posting screenshots of our replies. Comments appeared under them. This company actually cares. This is the best customer service I've seen. You should order from them. Daniel watched the traffic numbers climb. Mom. Yes. Our site traffic just doubled. Interesting. And orders are increasing. How much? He stared at the dashboard. 40%. I sipped my tea. Daniel laughed suddenly. A loud, disbelieving laugh. You turned a shipping disaster into marketing. I didn't turn anything. What do you mean? I just treated people like humans.
He shook his head.
In corporate, we would have had 3 emergency meetings and hired a PR firm. And how would that have gone? Probably worse. By midnight, the storm finally passed. Shipping resumed the next morning. Packages started moving again. Customers received their orders. And something else happened. Reviews began appearing on the website. 5 stars. One after another. Daniel read one out loud. I ordered a planner, and it got delayed because of a storm. The owner personally emailed me and explained everything. I'll buy from this company forever.
He looked at me.
You realize something? What? You didn't just build a product. What did I build? A community. I smiled slightly. That's the word people use now.
He shook his head.
I spent 15 years learning marketing strategies. And you taught me something better in 2 weeks. What's that? Respect your customers. The next morning, Daniel came downstairs earlier than usual. He sat at the table quietly, thinking. Then he looked at me. Mom. Yes, I owe you an apology. For what? For laughing at this business. I said nothing. For thinking it was small. And now. He looked around the room. At the boxes. The printers. The growing stack of new orders. I think it might be bigger than anything I've ever worked on. I smiled. But the truth was, neither of us realized yet just how big things were about to get. Because that afternoon, an email arrived that would change everything again. And this time, it wasn't a problem. It was an opportunity neither of us saw coming. Daniel was the one who saw the email first. He froze in front of the screen. Then he read the sender's name again. And again. Mom. His voice sounded strange. What? You need to see this. I walked over and looked at the laptop. The message was short, simple, but the name at the bottom made Daniel sit down slowly. It was from a buyer at a national retail chain. They had seen the screenshots of our customer messages circulating online. They had watched the sudden wave of positive reviews. And they wanted to talk. Daniel leaned back in his chair. This isn't real. It looks real. No, he said, shaking his head. Companies like this don't contact small businesses like ours. Maybe they do now. He opened the email again, reading every line carefully. They want a call tomorrow. Then we'll take the call. Daniel looked at me like I had just suggested ordering lunch. Mom, this could mean thousands of units. Yes. We don't have the infrastructure for that. We'll figure it out. He stared at me. You're not even nervous. I smiled slightly. I raised you and your sister. This is easier. The next day we sat at the kitchen table with the laptop open. Daniel had prepared notes. Sales numbers. Growth charts. Production capacity. He looked like he was about to walk into a corporate boardroom again. The call started. 2 buyers appeared on the screen. They asked questions about the product, the materials, the manufacturing process. Daniel answered most of them. Confident. Professional. Then one of the buyers turned to me. So tell us something, she said. Why do your customers love this product so much? Daniel started to answer, but I gently raised a hand. I'll answer that. The buyer smiled. Please. I leaned forward slightly. These planners weren't designed in a boardroom. They were designed at my kitchen table. I paused. I spent 30 years managing a household. Budgets, meals, schedules, school activities. I held up one of the planners. Every page in this book exists because at some point in my life I needed it. The buyers listened quietly. These aren't productivity tools. They're life tools. For a moment no one spoke. Then the buyer nodded slowly. That explains the loyalty. The call lasted 40 minutes. When it ended, Daniel closed the laptop. Neither of us said anything. Finally, he exhaled. That actually went well. Yes. Then his phone buzzed. He looked at the screen. His eyes widened. What? They just sent the proposal. He opened the document, then stared, and stared, and stared. How many units? I asked. Daniel swallowed. 50,000. The kitchen suddenly felt very quiet. 50,000? I repeated. Yes. And they want them in 6 months. I sat down slowly. That number was bigger than anything I had ever imagined. Daniel looked at me carefully. We don't have the production capacity for that. I know. We'd need suppliers. I know. A warehouse. Yes. Employees. Yes. He studied my face. You're smiling. Am I? Yes. Good. Why? Because this is the fun part. Daniel laughed. A real laugh this time. Not nervous. Not doubtful. Excited. I can't believe this started with planners on your kitchen table. It started earlier than that, I said. When people told me I was too old to learn something new. He nodded slowly. 2 months later the house looked completely different. The dining room had become an office. The garage was now a packing station. And the small business that Daniel once laughed at was hiring its first employees. Daniel handled logistics, suppliers, manufacturing, distribution, things he had learned in the corporate world. I focused on the product, the customers, the community. One evening we sat on the porch watching the sunset. Daniel looked tired, but happy. You know something? He said. What? Losing my job was the best thing that ever happened to me. I raised an eyebrow. Really? Yes. Why? Because if it hadn't happened, he looked at the house, at the lights still glowing inside where 2 new employees were finishing the day's orders. I never would have seen what you built. I didn't answer. After a moment he said something else. Something I never expected to hear. I'm proud of you, Mom. For a second I just looked at him. Then I smiled. Thank you. Daniel leaned back in his chair. You know what the craziest part is?
What?
A year ago, I thought modern business belonged to young people. And now, he shook his head. Now I think experience might be the most valuable thing there is. The wind moved softly through the trees, and inside the house, the printers were still running, orders still coming in. The little business that started on a kitchen table was no longer little, and the son who once laughed at the idea had become its biggest believer.